Yo, how's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander here, and I have a special video for you all. Because as of today, April 14th, 2024, it has officially been 1 year since the Pokémon Horizons series first aired in Japan with its first 2 episodes. I was going to say first episode, but episodes 1 and 2 aired on the same day. So, yeah, it's been 1 year now that Pokémon Horizons has aired, and a lot has happened. So let's talk about it in this video as I go over the series, kind of talk about the arcs within the series, the characters, and my overall thoughts. So, yeah, let's do that. Now, before we get started here, I just want to say if you're someone that's brand new to the channel and you like this type of content, it'd be pretty cool if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, watched it to the end, and hit that notification bell. All that stuff really helps, and yeah, that'd be really cool if you did that. Anyways, let's get on with the video now. Now, Pokémon Horizons continues a trend that really began with the Pokémon Sun and Moon anime, where the Pokémon anime started to do something unpredictable that kind of subverted everyone's expectations as to what the series would be like or what it should be about. Whereas the previous iteration of the Pokémon anime through the X and Y series kind of had a similar structure. Obviously, each series kind of did its own thing, but the structure was pretty much the same, with Ash taking on the Pokémon League, and then starting mainly with AG, minus Brock for AG and Diamond and Pearl. We had a new cast of characters that would show up and join Ash in his journey in the various different regions. They'd have their own goals, and then Ash would end up losing the league, and also the new characters wouldn't accomplish their goals either, so they would end up going their own ways, and then it was pretty much rinse and repeat pretty much through X and Y. And then we have the Sun and Moon anime, which pretty much did away with this formula, besides taking place in the current region at the time being Alola, instead of Ash doing like the island trials, which took the place of the gyms from the games, and then doing the league afterwards. Ash was in school, and the characters that would normally be his traveling companions were his classmates. There was a much larger cast, and he did the island trials, but it wasn't really counting towards the league. The league kind of was its own thing, but this time around, Ash ended up winning. So, yeah, major change for the formula. And then we move on to Pokemon Journeys, which was another major change, which dropped the large cast, brought it down to just 2 main characters, being Ash and Go, and it took place across the entire Pokemon world. And at the time, it was the 8 available regions up through Galar. So, yeah, the Pokemon anime has been evolving for the last few series. Now, getting to the main point here, Pokémon Horizons follows this trend of the Pokemon anime making changes from series to series, and this series actually happens to make some of the biggest changes in the entire history of the Pokemon anime, by first removing Ash as the main character, and this was quite the shock when it was first revealed in December of 2022. Yeah, this was a huge, shocking moment that, at that point, even I was kind of surprised, because I was getting to that point where I'm like, okay, I guess Ash is still going to be the main character, even though he just won the Pokemon World Championships. I mean, that was his major accomplishment, but they actually went ahead and did that. They obviously had his finale series with Aim to be a Pokemon Master, and then Horizons began. So, yeah, it was quite the shock, but with Pokemon Horizons, it would then introduce us to a fresh new cast of characters, retaining the duo protagonist format that was present in Pokemon Journeys, with Liko and Roy taking the place of Ash and Go. Now, unlike Journeys or any previous Pokemon anime for that matter, this series is a lot more plot-driven, focusing on Liko, her pendant later revealed to be Terapagos, Roy, a boy who happens to be in possession of an ancient Pokeball with a shiny Rayquaza in it, the Rising Volt Tacklers, who are hired to protect Liko from the Explorers who are after Terapagos. And yeah, there's quite a lot going on here. But Liko and the others want to help Terapagos regain its power, and to do that they seek out the hero Pokemon that are all under the ancient Pokemon adventurer Lucius, under his ownership, and they want to take Terapagos to a paradise known as Vakua. But the Explorers, led by Gibeon, want to steal Terapagos for their own plans. So yeah, not so episodic like Journeys was. That was the big thing about Pokemon Journeys. It was a very episodic series, which basically had some episodes taking place in certain places, different places throughout the Pokemon world at the time. You could have an episode taking place at Sinnoh, and then the next episode's in Johto, and then the next one after that takes place in Kalos. It was kind of all over the place, but here with Horizons, it's more plot driven. It's a lot slower in that sense. Instead of us being in one region for an episode, we might be in a region for like 10 plus episodes. So far, we've been to 3 regions so far within this series, being Kanto, Galar, and Paldea, which is obviously the newest region. And interesting enough, we've been in Kanto the least. But yeah, we're traveling to each of these regions via the Brave Asagi, or Brave Olivine in the dub, which is the ship that basically is piloting the Rising Voltaclers, Liko and Roy. Basically going over the whole entire Pokemon world on this ship. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the series, that's for sure. Now with that all out of the way, let's focus in pretty much with Pokemon Horizons for the rest of the video. So next up, I wanted to talk about how this series is divided up into different chapters or arcs, whatever you want to call it, for the various different story arcs that are taking place within this series. Since it's more plot focused, there is basically a chapter for each arc of the series. And they seem to run about 20 to 25 episodes. At least that's the case for the first 2 chapters. I don't know how chapter 3 is going to go, but I guess we'll see. So, each chapter has a title. So, for chapter 1, we have Liko and Roy's departure, taking place between episodes 1 and 25. Then we have chapter 2, The Sparkling of Terrapagos, which takes place between episodes 26 and 45. And then we have chapter 3, the latest arc within the series, the Terrestrial debut arc, taking place starting with episode 46, which, interesting enough, just aired just before this video comes out, so interesting. Now, I'm going to be giving my thoughts mainly on the first 2 chapters and some brief thoughts on the first episode for chapter 3, but for the purpose of this video, we're mainly focusing on chapters 1 and 2. So yeah. So, starting with chapter 1, this chapter obviously introduces us to the series, its characters, and its plot, which is slowly developing over time. So, we start out with Liko enrolling at the Indigo Academy in the Kanto region, before the explorers basically are on her trail because of the pendant that she got from her grandmother, that she didn't realize was this super important pendant. But then she meets the Rising Voltaclers, which are actually hired by her family to protect her from the explorers. And then we eventually meet Roy in episode 4, and he has an ancient Pokeball, which kickstarts the hero's plotline, with Rayquaza being awakened from the ancient Pokeball. And then the story just develops from there. We learn more about the explorers, we learn about the hero Lucius, his whole background, how he's the ancient adventurer, and he has hero Pokemon that seem to be scattered around the world, that seem to be causing some issues, and Liko and Roy are basically seeking out the heroes. Terrapagos emerges from the pendant, and then there's the whole thing with Gibeon, and there's a developing plot there. So yeah, there is a lot going on here, and this is just the beginning of the series. Now, as a starting arc for the series, I actually think it's pretty good for the most part. Our main characters are brand new trainers that, while not doing the gym challenge, are learning, they're growing, they're encountering very strong Pokemon and trainers, being the explorers. So they're basically getting thrown into the fire immediately, which is kind of funny. But I like how this series slowly introduces us to the main parts of the story. It's not just thrown at us like all at once. We're just slowly digesting it over time, so I think that's pretty nice. Like the whole plot with Lucius and the hero Pokemon, it's slowly introduced to us, and they like feed it to us slowly over time. We kind of just get to know it more and more, and I think that's actually been really nice, instead of it just being thrown at us like in episode 1. So I like that the series is kind of just slowly giving us information on that, and there's still a lot of mysteries that we have yet to discover about Lucius and the explorers. So I find that whole mystery plot to be very interesting, and I am liking it so far. I also think that overall, this basically sets up everything nicely. The characters have some pretty good developments throughout the first chapter, with Liko, Roy, and even Dot getting some good moments. Dot was actually kind of a surprise, being introduced as Nidothing, then eventually being like, oh, she's on the Brave Asagi as a streamer, and she doesn't really like talk to people. And yeah, eventually, everybody gets their good moments here. Both Liko and Roy get new Pokemon during the arc as well, besides their starters. So we also have a pretty good wrap up with episode 25, as Freed finally gets a solid W against Amethio. At that point, they've been battling for multiple different episodes, but they never seem to finish their battle until this episode, where Freed finally defeats Amethio. We also get some introductions for the admins here, at least for Liko and Roy. We actually got introduced to them earlier, but this is Liko and Roy's first meeting with some of them, being Sango and Onyx. And then Liko's grandma joins the crew for a brief amount of time, basically starting with this episode. So yeah, those are pretty much my strong points for Chapter 1, or things that I liked. Now moving on to the weakest parts of this chapter. For me, the weakest points here are episode 13, and then the conclusion of the Galarian Moltres, like, mini arc within the series. So for episode 13, I just found the episode mostly boring, with some good moments here and there, but mainly Dot and Liko. The whole sandwich bit was kind of meh, and Motrell's introduction was kind of not the best, even though episode 14 basically made up for it. So yeah. But that's kind of more of a nitpick. I guess the main issue here is the Galarian Moltres conclusion, which I think that one had a good start. The first episode was actually pretty neat, for the most part. There was some annoying moments with Roy, but it showed how dangerous it was, and it was a legitimate threat. And Freed and Amethio were battling, and they ended up getting left behind, as Liko and Roy literally escaped the mine with Galarian Moltres, like, basically chasing after them. The mine literally collapses behind them as they escape, trapping Amethio and Freed in the mine with Galarian Moltres. And personally, in my opinion, I feel like this could have led to a great moment where Liko and Roy would have had to come up with a strategy or brainstorm something to save Freed, as he would be in trouble, probably, stranded behind, facing off against Galarian Moltres. Given that Galarian Moltres was basically chasing after Liko and Roy, you'd think that Galarian Moltres wouldn't let Amethio or Freed go very easily. And then we go to the very next episode, and Freed's immediately at the Pokemon Center, which completely did away with all the tension that was built up there at the end of the previous episode. And also, Amethio basically disappeared for the majority of the episode too, so that was, not so great there. Their strategy was interesting, trying to get Spree's sweet scent to basically calm down Moltres, but I don't know. I feel like this wasn't handled the best. It kind of just felt like plot armor was kicking in from time to time here. Not the worst thing in the world. I still think basically the whole setup in the previous episode was kind of ruined from the beginning. I think that's kind of the main problem I had with this one. So I think out of all the heroes we've gotten so far, this capture here is probably my least favorite. That all being said, besides that, I think that the first chapter was overall very solid. I liked pretty much most of the episodes, and I thought it was a pretty good start for the series. I can't really say the same for chapter 2, at least for the start. So yeah, this is kind of a mixed bag, basically in the beginning here. So we're basically at the end of the Galar portion of the story. At least, I don't know if we're going back to Galar at this point, but for the time being, this was the last part of the Galar portion of Horizons so far. And it was kind of boring and a little mediocre until we met Lapras. We had that one episode where the ancient Pokeball got stolen. Yeah, that one was not that great. But you could tell that the series is kind of biding its time a little bit for the DLC, the wrap-up, so they can basically just go all in with the Terrapago stuff. So, yeah, things kind of slowed down big time here, at least in my opinion. But then we move on to the first major confrontation with Rayquaza. I mean, I guess technically second, because episode 6 we had a confrontation with it there. But this one was pretty much more direct, because they come across Rayquaza, and then Amethio shows up and attacks it. And Amethio ends up taking one of the fattest L's I've ever seen in a series. And then this causes Rayquaza to go into a blind rage, where he basically starts attacking everything and everyone in the vicinity of it. And we end up getting Terrapagos changing and showing its full form. So that was cool, at least for a little bit. And Liko's grandma actually gets a pretty decent farewell here. with her passing on Lucius's belt to her, which is pretty neat. It's a little bit of a passing of the torch moment. And then we head back to Paldea, which they're going back for research on Terrapagos, which sounds good. And then we get average episodes because the Rising Bolt Tacklers don't have the funds to continue. And we get a couple of meh episodes here at the beginning of the Paldea, like return arc, I guess you can call it here, which is pretty disappointing, not gonna lie. It's also pretty annoying that even by this point, Freed is basically still saving Liko and Roy constantly, it seems, which I'd feel by this point they'd be able to at least, stand up for themselves and start getting some wins on their own. At least Liko's gotten some, but Roy's he's been struggling a lot here, and Freed kind of seems to come in and save the day constantly, which by this point is getting kind of annoying. It was fine in the beginning, like in the first 10 or 20 episodes, but by this point I think Liko and Roy need to actually start stepping up and defending themselves a little bit more, and not having Charizard or Captain Pikachu just stepping in and saving them constantly. So that was kind of another issue I was having. I mean, a lot of people in the community were having by this point in the series. Luckily, though, things actually start to pick up once we get towards the end of the 30s, as we get some pretty good character development episodes and a new capture. Then we have the Spirido backstory episode as we go into episode 40, the Dot's mom episode, which was also pretty good, the really funny episode with Mighty G, episode 43, which basically was the precursor for what I consider to be one of the best endings I've seen for an arc within the Pokemon anime, being episodes 44 and 45. As we end up having the Explorers and their plot to capture Rayquaza. We end up getting to know the Explorers a little bit more. This is something I've been wanting for a long time, and we're definitely going to be getting more within Chapter 3 of the series. As we go up against Rayquaza, we have Spirido evolving in episode 45, Fuecoco learning yet another new move, and as Floragato and Fuecoco are facing off against Rayquaza, Fuecoco ends up actually hurting Rayquaza. Granted, this is a heavily damaged Rayquaza, but the fact that he actually managed to do some serious damage on Rayquaza, and it looks like Rayquaza felt that, it shows that Liko and Roy have already grown quite a bit since they become trainers, going up against a legendary Pokemon. But the fact that they, along with Dot, want to get even stronger and do more training, get their Terra Orbs and terrestrialize their Pokemon, it just shows that they have so much more room for growth, and they're just really willing to learn that, and that's just awesome. So yeah, I really hope that Chapter 3 further pushes these three, so that when the Bravasagi is basically fixed because it got destroyed in episode 44, they'll be a lot stronger, more formidable, and be facing off against the remaining heroes and the Explorers, and they don't have Freed constantly having to save them all the time. I'm really hoping that things change here, and they're able to defend themselves, and maybe even save Freed here and there. It'd be pretty cool. Oh, hey guys, this is Mitchell, slightly ahead in the future here from the rest of this script. So, the first episode of the Terrestrial debut arc aired not long after I added this part to the script. So, yeah, it was actually really good. It was a fantastic start to the new chapter of the series. I got a really good feeling that the focus is going to be mainly on the three kids, Liko, Roy, and Dot, and we're going to see them really grow in this arc. And yeah, I'm actually really excited for this upcoming arc. So, year 2 sounds like it's going to be a good one. So yeah, let's go back to our regular script now. Now that we talked about the arcs, let's talk about the characters themselves. I already talked about the characters a little bit here and there as I talked about the arcs, but let's go a little bit more in depth. So, with Horizons being the first series without Ash and Pikachu, it's an end of an era for the Pokemon anime, but a new beginning with a brand new cast of characters. So, let's talk about them. Alright, starting with Liko, and I have to say that I actually like Liko a lot. At first I wasn't really sure, because her personality is pretty different for a lead character, and she's a lot different than Ash. And I have to say that this was probably a decision for the best, because if this were Ash 2.0, I would probably not be on board with the series as much. I like that they're doing a different type of character. She's still very kind-hearted. Like, she loves Pokemon like Ash, but she basically takes it from a different approach. But she will still risk her life for her friends or her Pokemon. And I like that aspect about her. She does slightly have moments that are similar to Ash, but she's still very much her own character, and I really like that. I like her Pokemon that she has, her Spiritomb that's now evolved into Florigato as of episode 45, and then Hatena. I think they're really good. I think they really suit her. I just hope that Hatena either evolves or gets some new moves or is more involved in battles in the future of the series, because yeah, it's cute, but yeah, we need it to do a little bit more than just, be cute and just be there for support. Like, actually make it do stuff. Eventually make it evolve. Like, obviously if it evolved now, it probably would be a little underwhelming, so maybe make it battle a little bit more or do something or train it or something, and then eventually evolve it, and then it becomes way more evolved at that point. So yeah, just something that I would like to see for Liko in the upcoming chapter. Have a Hatena evolve at some point, or have it just more involved in the series. Moving on to Roy. Now, going into the Pokemon Horizons series, I was actually really worried that I was not going to like Roy. I was just afraid that I was going to be annoyed at Roy and just not like him. And I will say there are a few moments where he is a little annoying, where I'm like, all right, Roy, let's get serious, yo. But honestly, I actually quite like Roy. He's actually pretty cool. I like his goal of battling legendary Pokemon and, following after Lucius. I think that's pretty neat. Obviously, it ultimately led him to want to capture Rayquaza and defeat it. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty similar to Go's goal of catching Mew, but this goal will revolve around Roy becoming a lot stronger. Obviously, Go became strong because of Ash, and he also had a lot of Pokemon, but Roy's got a long way to go. I guess a little is not cutting it. He has a long way to go, that's for sure. But as of episode 45, he's showing that he actually has enough strength to actually hurt Rayquaza. So he's made some progress. So here's the hoping that he'll get a lot stronger in Chapter 3, or just the future of the series, because he definitely needs it. I just hope that this doesn't end like Project Mew does, and yeah, that was not so cool for Go's character. I would hate to see the same thing happen with Roy, so hopefully, yeah, he accomplishes his goals, or at least gets close to it or something. Also, Wattrell, do something, Burb. Do something in this upcoming arc, because you just disappeared for a long time, and we all love you. You're a little Burb. Do something this upcoming arc, like battle, like Hatena, but actually, be present and actually do stuff and win battles or something. I don't know. That's probably one of my biggest criticisms for Roy for the first year of the series, is this Pokemon was really neat when he caught it, and then it just disappeared. So hopefully it shows up more often here. Now, while the series advertises Liko and Roy as dual protagonists, it's pretty clear at this point that Liko has the greater focus here. The plot pretty much revolves around her, with the pendant turned Terapagos. Lucius is pretty much all but confirmed to be her ancestor, since her grandmother has like Lucius's diary and his belt and stuff. So like, how else would she have this stuff? Seems a little convenient for her to have this stuff. So it's pretty clear that Lucius is related to her in some way, shape, or form. But Roy, on the other hand, he's pretty much here because his grandpa found an ancient Pokeball. Nothing really too special about it. It's not like it's been handed down through like generations or something like that. Just found it on the beach. And that's how Roy's here. He does, admire, Lucius, which is cool, which kind of connects him a little bit to Liko. But I just don't feel like there's enough here. Like, Liko's obviously got the greater focus, and she feels like she's the chosen one, where Roy kind of just feels like he's there. He's there to support her. And yeah. So hopefully going into year 2, hopefully we get some more focus with Roy and becomes a little bit unique in his own way, so he can stand next to Liko as his own character and be, as an equal to her. Because, yeah, he hasn't won a battle against her, and he's the one that wants to face off against Rayquaza. So if he's going to accomplish his goals, we need him getting stronger and winning some battles, not just losing. And like I said, Wattrell needs some more screen time, so yeah, I'm just hoping that Roy basically gets a little bit more focus in year 2, so he can stand up next to Liko as like the main protagonist of the series and not kind of feel like he's secondary to her, because that's kind of how it feels at the moment. Okay, now that we talked about our main characters, let's talk about some of the side characters here. I'm not going to spend as much time here with each individual character as I did with Liko and Roy, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible with each of the side characters, and then we'll move on to antagonists after that. So, just an FYI, so if we make a switch suddenly, going from side characters to antagonists, well, I'm telling you now, so be on the lookout for that. Anyways, side character time. Okay, starting with the most prominent side character in the series, especially at this point, being Dot. Arguably my favorite character in the series. She is great. She is literally Koharu / Chloe from Pokemon Journeys, done correctly, as like the third like character within the series, like the third kid, I guess you should say, because Ash, Go, and Koharu were the 3 characters from Journeys, whereas it mainly focused on Ash and Go. You know, here it's supposed to be Liko and Roy, and then Dot's like, you know, kind of the third character here. But unlike Chloe or Koharu, Dot has been done correctly. She has developed really greatly in just the first year of the series. Going from a shut-in who doesn't like in real life friendships, doesn't care about them, doesn't like interacting with people, to now going with Liko and Roy to school and actually going out of her way to like save her friends. Oh, and the Tinka capture was great, so yeah, Dot is amazing. Next up we have Freed, and yeah, Freed is that guy. He is my personal favorite, even though I think Dot might be my favorite now, but Freed, he's my personal favorite. He's the cool leader of the Rising Volt Tacklers with his Pokemon being Pikachu and Charizard. Yes. As the great Squidward would say, daring today, aren't we? Sorry, I just had to do my Squidward impression for you all. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. But anyways, he has Captain Pikachu and Charizard, his 2 Pokemon. The 2 Pokemon we literally saw in the Masters 8 finals. Yep. But regardless, I do like Freed a lot. Until episode 44, 45, episode 18, being the Captain Pikachu backstory episode, was my favorite. But yeah, besides him stepping in all the time to save the kids, I like him. He's cool. Hopefully we have Liko and Roy maybe save him sometime down the road. Something I'd like to see, but yeah, I like Freed. He's still pretty cool. Next up we have Molly. And I like Molly. She gives off some big sister vibes to the kids, especially Liko. And I do like her background. I like that she basically is essentially like a Nurse Joy-like character. She even has the pink hair to go along with it. But she's Molly, obviously. But she has the background of, you know, having that field of work, working in Pokemon centers, taking care of Pokemon there, but left that behind to help out injured Pokemon in the wild, because who's going to do that? She can't do that at her job at the Pokemon centers, so doing this and going out in the wild is what she wants to do, so that's pretty cool. I would just like a backstory episode for her. Maybe we have that sometime down the road when the school arc ends. That would be really cool. I think she actually really needs it, so yeah, I like Molly, but I'd like maybe a development episode or 2 for her in the future. Next up we have Murdoch, and yes, the worried uncle for Dot. I like the fact that he's actually related to Dot. It's actually pretty neat. I like that he's actually very caring, and I like that about him. Also, his backstory episode was pretty neat. There was a character that happened to be named Mitchell that was his partner. Totally not biased here in thinking that was a great episode because there was a character named Mitchell there, but yeah, he's cool. Would maybe like him to be a little bit more involved with the cast, or like in like the actual plot, instead of him just kind of being there to cook foods and stuff and just be a worried uncle. I don't know. I like him, but have him be maybe a little bit more involved in the future, like going up against explorers and stuff. So yeah. And up next we have Orla, and I gotta say, I like Orla. I like her personality, and she did get an episode that did give her backstory. It wasn't the best episode, sadly. It was an alright backstory. I'm kind of just hoping for a little bit more with her, besides her just being like the character that basically like keeps the ship, sailing in the skies and not plummeting out. And I think it is pretty cool that she built the ship. That's cool. She definitely has the skills to do that, and I do like her. But I feel like there should be a little bit more. I understand that she's childhood friends with Freed, so maybe we can get an episode about how they met back in the day, maybe as kids or something like that. I actually think that'd be a really cool episode. Kind of like the Mallow Lana episode from Sun and Moon. Well, Freed and Orla. That would be cool. Can we get that? I would like that after the school arc. Let's do that. Give them an episode for that. I'd be down for that, so hopefully we get something better for Orla in the future. And then lastly for the crew, we have Ludlow, aka Mighty G. Ah yes, the old man. He had wise words all the time, but really wasn't involved. He just sat there and fished all the time. Here and there he'd be involved, but it was very few and far between, so I was a little bit underwhelming there. But then Mighty G appeared in all his glory and changed everything, and he suddenly became a top tier character within the series. But all jokes aside, I hope Mighty G isn't like a one-off character. Hopefully it shows up, maybe one or two more times, because I like it. I like the All Might reference. But maybe give us like some more background on him, like a backstory episode, because yeah, he doesn't have it at the moment. He's kind of just there, so maybe we can get something for him in the future as well. Now, I also wanted to mention Anne really quick here. Now, she also is pretty much a side character at this point that hasn't gotten a whole lot of screen time, but I really like her. She has such a great personality that contrasts with Liko meek personality. It worked really well in episode 1, and it was a shame that she kind of just disappeared after that and just appearing basically on FaceTime here and there. So that's been a bit upsetting, but I like the fact that she is showing up here in chapter 3 since she's transferring over to the academy in Paldea. So we're going to be seeing some more interaction with her and Liko in this arc, so that's cool. So yeah, hopefully we get some more Anne screen time. She definitely deserves it. Okay, let's talk about the main antagonist for the series, starting with Ametheo. I gotta say, I like Ametheo, and I like how he's immediately different from Team Rocket. He definitely has like a no-nonsense attitude and takes things very seriously. He does have some funny moments here and there, kind of just based on his personality and kind of some of the things he says. But I just like that he's very serious, and he takes his mission seriously. And not only that, he actually does give Freed some trouble, and shows that he's actually a legitimate threat. And he's someone that Liko and Roy, currently at the moment, they can't really handle. So that's kind of interesting. So a little bit of a change from Team Rocket where, our main characters easily handle them. Here, Liko and Roy pretty much can't. But I like the friction that's currently going on within the Explorers between Ametheo and Spinel. More on him shortly. Not to mention his team up with Freed in episode 45. That was really cool. So, who knows, maybe Ametheo might eventually leave the Explorers. Maybe he sees the error of his ways, or doesn't agree with the Explorers in the future, or ends up getting betrayed or something. I could see something like that potentially happening, but I guess we'll see what happens in the future. Now, as for his two lackeys, Zerk and Konya, yeah, unfortunately, I don't really care for them. They're kind of not really super relevant at this point. I'm more interested in some of the other Explorers at this point. Konya had a lot of potential in the beginning, especially with episode 3. She had some really nice moments that showed off her personality with Spiritito. But after that, there really wasn't anything else with her, which, it's like, why even do that if we're not going to follow it up? I know that Zerk watches Nidothing, which I thought was kind of a neat detail. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see, like, their interaction, like Zerk interacting with Dot and finding out that she's Nidothing. I wonder how he's going to react to that. But besides that, I don't really care for either of them, unfortunately. And next up we have Spinel, and I gotta say, I like him. He is really cool. He's a very interesting villain. I'm actually kind of interested to see what he does from here. He actually has given the Rising Bolt Tacklers a lot of trouble in the series. From when he was introduced to all the stuff he was doing in the early Paldea arc. And then even in episode 44, actually pressuring Freed. The guy is really smart, and I'm very interested to see where things go from here. He also doesn't like Amicio, so there's already some friction there, as I mentioned earlier. So he also mentions that he wants to study Freed more, considering that Freed was able to break out of the trap that he placed him in episode 44. So maybe next time Freed's not going to be able to escape so easily. So that I'm kind of interested to see if something like that does happen and Liko and Roy have to end up saving Freed. See? Good scenario right there, and Spinel could be the one that sets that up. In addition to that, he also seems to have like his own agenda separate from the rest of the explorers. So he might even be plotting his own thing to basically betray the rest of the explorers and maybe take Rayquaza or like Terapagos or whatever for himself. So I guess we'll see where we go from here with Spinel. For now, I have to say he has pretty much been an effective villain. Probably the most effective out of all the explorers. Next up we have Onyx, and honestly there's not much to say about the guy. He is very quiet. I do like his design, I will say that. I think the main thing for him is that he works really well with Sango, playing off her like crazy personality versus his like more mild personality. It's actually a really neat dynamic, and it actually works, surprisingly, but outside of that, like if it's just him, he's not super interesting. So yeah, but speaking of Sango, yeah, Sango. Although I like Amicio and Spinel, Sango is my personal favorite from the explorers because she's just a little gremlin. She's a little agent of chaos, and I'm all here for it. Like, she is crazy. Like, she has quite the berserk button. Like, if things are not going her way, she'll just tell her Glalie to just blow up. Just command it to explode. And yeah, she's very unhinged, and I love it. She's a little gremlin. She works really well with Onyx. It's actually really funny to see, but her personality is just great. And she was kind of absent for the most part in year 1, but seeing as she's going to be involved in the terrestrial debut chapter, gives me hope that we're going to be seeing her a lot in year 2. And from what I've already seen in year 1, she's already been great. I already love her. So I look forward to seeing what she comes up with in the terrestrial debut arc. Next up we have Agate, and honestly there's really not much to say about her at the moment because we haven't really seen a whole lot of her. There's been a few interactions we've had with some of the explorers, but there's not really a whole lot to glean from those interactions so far for her. She was involved in the Rayquaza plot in episode 44 and 45, but we only got to see her battle a little bit, face off against Rayquaza. And from what we've seen, she does seem like she's very competent, but I feel like we're going to get to know her a little bit more during the terrestrial debut arc, since she's going to be involved with the other admins, being Sango and Onyx. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of them in this upcoming arc. So once we get to this portion of the series and kind of her involvement in the terrestrial debut arc, then we'll be able to kind of formulate an opinion on her. But for the time being, I don't really have much to say, unfortunately. Now for Giveon. And he is mostly a mystery at this point. So again, I don't have a whole lot to say. I just like the fact that there's a whole mystery surrounding him and Lucius, which I think is very curious. And I really want to know more about that. And what he ultimately wants out of all of this. Like, I'm curious what the explorers want. Oh, and by the way, he has a shiny Zygarde? What? Like, what? That's crazy. But yeah, I'm very intrigued about him and Lucius and kind of just their involvement, how they know each other. So we'll know about that soon enough. So for now, I actually like the mystery behind it. So I like it. It's cool. Hopefully we just slowly learn more and more over time. But at the moment, I'm very intrigued to see what happens next with Giveon and the explorers. Okay, so we talked about the arcs within the series, and we talked about the characters. This is already a very long video, but I promise it's not going to go on too much longer. So, overall, I have to say that I have very much enjoyed Pokémon Horizons for the first year of the series. Despite its flaws, despite, Chapter 2, having a few duds here and there, I think that this has been a solid series so far. I think it's been a big step up from Pokemon Journeys. I'm very much enjoying it, and I look forward to seeing what's going on in year 2. We've already got a good start for the Terrestrial debut arc, so I'm very excited to see where we go from here. So when it comes to the ratings, I give Chapter 1, the Liko and Roy departure chapter, an 8 out of 10. So for the Sparkling of Terrapagos chapter, or Chapter 2, I give it a 6 out of 10. So overall, 7 out of 10. So, good so far. Has its flaws, but it has a lot of potential to get better in the future, so a very promising start for Pokemon Horizons. Alrighty guys, that's pretty much all I got for this video. Well, it's been a long video, that's for sure. A lot longer than I was expecting it to be, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun making this one. You know, and just remember guys, these are my opinions. So, just please respect my opinions, and I will respect yours. So, speaking of that, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this series and your opinions. What do you think about Pokemon Horizons now that 1 year has passed? Do you like the series? Do you dislike the series? What would you rate the series out of 10? And what are the things you liked about the series, like the highlights from episodes 1 to 46? What are your highlights? What are things you want to see going into year 2? What do you want to see in the future? Like, what do you want from this series? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, so post them. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. So, we're going to bring this video to an end so it doesn't go on any longer. So guys, have a great day or night wherever you're at, and I will see you all later. Bye.